このボール空っぽじゃなかった。まさか。ロトム、あのポケモンは
𝐜𝐡𝐚𝐧𝐧𝐞𝐥天空ポケモンドラ。
So without a doubt, episode number 1 of Pokemon Horizons has been the best episode. The pilot episode was definitely the thing to come and just grab you and say, you're gonna love this new season of Pokemon. But since then, episode number 6 of Pokemon Horizons is absolutely incredible. I dare say, no pun intended, legendary. It was really that good. Like, this episode not only had us finally, setting off for the adventure again to Paldea, it not only had Roy finally catching Fuecoco with the idea behind it that Fuecoco wants to be his partner Pokemon. It not only had us reveal that what's going to drive Roy moving forward, which is basically trying to tread in the steps of the ancient trainer and go find Rayquaza. But then it also had a legendary Pokemon come out of the ball in a black Rayquaza, which is a shiny Rayquaza, which is insane, the fact that that exists. Then it also showed us that Amateo reports to someone named Master Gibeon, and if you're ever familiar with like Power Rangers from kind of before, he reminds me of Zordon, which was like the main big head that used to give the Rangers orders. It reminds me of that kind of a lot. And then also, on top of all of that, right, we finally saw that the pendant does kind of respond to Liko emotions, which is very, very important as well too. So this episode gave us so much. It gave us so much information. It gave us so much to kind of really go off of. And this is how you start off a Pokemon adventure. Now, the funny things that happened this episode too is I love how Liko kind of like gaslit, kind of like talked Roy into coming along in the adventure because they're going to Paldea. She was like, don't stay, buddy. Come with us. Come on your adventure. You deserve it, blah, blah. And the whole time I'm just thinking, like, we are convincing a 10-year-old little boy, like, I mean, a baby, a child at this point, to basically leave home and just go set out on an adventure. She was like, your grandpa's gotta let you spread your wings sometime. Better time than ever. I'm just like, the whole time, I'm like, I get it in the context of Pokemon. It's standard 10, 11 years old. You go, you get your first partner Pokemon, you set out on your first adventure. It's standard within this world, but then within the context of my normal brain, I'm still like, you're trying to convince a 10-year-old child to go and like leave home and spread their wings. I just think that was, it's just one of those things that kind of comes back. I'm just like, it's so silly. But I definitely love it. So let's kind of talk about the rest of the episode, but I just want to say, like, this episode, legendary, absolutely incredible. Enjoyed every single moment of this episode. Like, when the Black Rayquaza came out, I literally went, Rayquaza is one of my favorite legendary Pokemon, and I don't know if you guys know, but I run a gaming channel, and when Pokemon Sword and Shield had come out, a few years ago, and the DLC occurred for Pokemon Sword and Shield, my wife and I, we streamed very, very regularly at one point on our channel. We would stream 3-4 times a week, and we would do Dynamax adventures in Pokemon Sword and Shield, and one of the Pokemon that we were hunting in those adventures was a black shiny Rayquaza. And I just remember it was such a good time doing that with a bunch of viewers and everything. It was just such a fun time. So it always sticks in my mind, not only from the past when I was a kid playing Emerald for the first time and really loving, Rayquaza, but then that moment also sticks in my mind of like week after week after week hunting this shiny Rayquaza with the wife. It was just such a good time. So Rayquaza definitely holds a special spot in my heart, along with Ho, along with Lugia, along with Suicune, Rayquaza. These are like my 4 favorite, legendary Pokemon of all time. So I was definitely excited to see it. So let's kind of go through everything else here, but I just want to say if you click off at this point, episode number 6, 10 out of 10 episode. I think this was just an incredible episode, from writing to character development to plot twist to actually, giving us a huge purpose moving forward as we go into Paldea for the first time, and then actually showing us the opposite side of the bad guys as well. I just think that is such an important thing to show us is, what's driving the bad guys, what's driving the villain characters forward, who are they reporting to, what's their cause, and some of those things still need to be answered, but we have a very good idea. And the thing I like most about the villains is 𝐜𝐴𝐷𝐼O, and because I talked about it last week, he has a moral compass to where he's evil by nature of who he works for and kind of what motivates him, but he's not evil internally to go do things kind of outside of he could have kidnapped the kids, but instead he's like, let's Pokemon battle. There's just a certain moral compass that I think this main character of the villain side has that I just really vibe with and I really like. So episode number 6, 10 out of 10. So let's kind of go through it. So when we kind of go through the different variations of the episode, we get reminded again about 𝐒�la's pendant as well as Roy's Pokeball and how they begin glowing together, how they're tied together in some way, shape, or form. The episode name was Ancient Pokeball, so that's definitely kind of gives us a really good idea of what's going to happen. I wrote down that I continue to love because we kind of got into last week's battle and then we picked up this week, and Roy and 𝐒𝐻la were challenging 𝐜𝐴𝐷𝐼O. And I like how when they challenge him again, he's like, nobody throws hands, nobody does anything. He's like, let's battle. So they have to take on the Pokemon and they have to battle there. So I really like that quite a bit. Eventually, Fuecoco and Sprigatito, they're very new Pokemon, very newly trained Pokemon, so they don't really have a lot of moves yet. So eventually, as they're about to lose, 𝐒𝐻la just cries out, to her pendant, please save us. That's what causes Roy's Pokeball to snap open, and a portal essentially gets opened up to the sky, and the heavens Pokemon ascends down, and Rayquaza comes down, Black Rayquaza comes down from the sky, and immediately, dude, I was screaming, give it a command, just to see, like, I was like, 𝐒𝐻la, give it a command, Roy, give it a command, like, attack, hyper beam, do something, you know what I mean? But it didn't end up happening that way. Before I move on to the next part, I did want to say one of the questions I've always wondered, as a 25-year Pokemon trainer myself since Pokemon Red and Blue, is I've always wondered how long can Pokemon stay in a Pokeball, and what happens if the trainer dies or something and the Pokemon retains in their Pokeball. Well, this episode kind of answers that question. Is this specific Pokeball that Roy has, this very ancient Pokeball that he has, his grandpa, when he was a kid, found it on the beach. So his grandpa looks about 60, maybe 70 years old or something. So for the past 60 or so odd years, he's just kind of had this Pokeball chilling there, and then he finally passed it on to Roy because Roy was very interested in it. So that means that this Pokemon was just chilling in this Pokeball for God knows how long before he found it, but then at least 60 years. So that tells me something that's very morbid is, I've always wondered what happens, if a trainer dies or something and their Pokemon weren't released out of their Pokeballs. Well, it very much sounds like the Pokemon just kind of get stuck in this void, whatever void gets created in these Pokeballs, when they shrink themselves down, because that's what Pokemon Arceus told us, the game, is that Pokemon, we're not grabbing them and then like giving them, it's like they shrink themselves down to fit into this ball. It sounds like they just kind of chill there infinitely. So that means that there's probably a lot of dead Pokemon inside of Pokeballs. Although, Rayquaza is a legendary Pokemon, so I imagine, the Heavens Pokemon, Arceus, the God Pokemon, the Time Pokemon, there's probably things that keep them alive. But, for the standard Charmander who gets stuck in a Pokeball, sounds like, it's kind of morbid. Just want to throw that out there. Then we move on to the next part where Roy's like, I need to go on an adventure because 𝐒𝐻la talks him into it. He catches Fuecoco, really emotional moment. And his grandpa sets sail, lets him set sail on his first adventure. Then we get to meet 𝐜𝐴𝐷𝐼O's boss, Mr. 𝐒𝐵𝐵𝐿. And then Mr. 𝐒𝐵𝐵𝐿 assigns a new person to go after 𝐒𝐻la and Roy, named Spinel. So we get to see kind of more of that as time goes on. And then 𝐜𝐴𝐷𝐼O claims that he's going to not go after the kids anymore because this new guy's got assigned, but instead he's going to go after the Rayquaza. So really incredible episode. Really enjoyed it a lot. This brought a lot of smiles to my face. It brought a lot of like to my face with Rayquaza. It's just awfully good, incredible, legendary episode. Let me know what you thought about episode 6. Have a great rest of your weekend. Have a great rest of your day. And I'll see you for the next episode of Pokemon Horizons.